So today, the doctor prescribes a checkup on all the swing states, checking the polling aggregates around all these important battleground states and see who is winning in all these. And we're also factoring RFK into a lot of these polls. So let's get right into the content. All right, so we're going to start off with the alphabetical order of Arizona being the first state. And here we go. The most recent poll from Redfield and Wilton Strategies, and the sponsor being the Telegraph, has Trump up 44% to Biden's 41%. Obviously, that leads you with about 15% undecided vote. Undecided, obviously, going towards RFK, Green Party, Libertarian Party, Constitution Party, etc. So, I mean, that being said, that's a Trump net result of +3 on the aggregate. That's out of a poll of 516 people. There's some slightly bigger options coming in the same weekend, 2 weeks ago, most recently saying that Trump is still up by 4 to 3% at worst. So we're going to color in Arizona as a Republican state for now. Moving on, let's go. New Mexico is the neighboring state to Arizona, and of course, there is literally nothing to go off here. Evidently, the most recent poll was about a year ago, in fact, and it was Public Opinion Strategies polling only 500 people saying that Trump was losing by about 11. Now, granted, Trump did not start beating Biden in the polls until around October of last year. So, what that means is basically Trump is probably about 6 to 7 points better off than what he was in May of 2023. If you're taking that as any indication for what's going to happen in this election, then Trump's probably going to lose the state of New Mexico by like 4%, which is in line with what I was thinking about anyway. Now, Colorado, for whatever reason, has a lot more active polling than New Mexico, which may lead to think that the money, the people that are in control of surveys are actually thinking that this is more competitive than New Mexico. Maybe that's a little truth nugget that people need to look into. But aside from that, we have way more updated polling. Instead of May 2023, we're working with March 3rd of 2024. So we're thinking about maybe a 3 to 4 week old poll. Anyway, Florida Atlantic University has the poll as Biden +4 against Donald Trump. Again, that's with a polling sample of about 170. And that is like less than a Walmart parking lot in capacity. So that's not really asking much of a state as big as Colorado. That being said, we have a poll with 9 more contestants here. And same thing, Trump is down by 5 to Biden's lead of 48 to 43. So, I mean, it's not looking so hot. Again, this was like about a month ago. Trump is better off than he was a month ago. So, all that being taken into consideration, I would say Biden still wins Colorado by about 4 to 5 as well. Virginia survey, the economy there is pretty down bad when you're looking at it. We've gone about a month without an update. But what I have to tell you here is that as of March 3rd of 2024, we have a poll with only 368 registered responders, and these responders say that they prefer Biden 49% to Trump's 42%. That's a lead of +6 for Joe Biden on the net. And if you look at the poll right before that, even again, same company, it has a similar result of 47 to 42. So what that leads you to think, frankly, is that this is a very pro-Biden state, all things considered. And so with that being said, it seems like Biden's on track to win that by like 4 to 5 as well. So we're also going to color in Virginia as a blue state. Moving on. Okay, now back to, I would say, a non-competitive state, but one that is at least of note, okay? This is going to be North Carolina. The state has a poll as of 2 weeks ago with about 642 respondents, okay? And you've got Trump leading by 4%. Again, this is a poll that is maybe not the best because when you're looking at it, it only has an upside of about 82% of people deciding either two of the candidates, which doesn't make sense. But if you look at the poll 3 days before that, so one fortnight before this one, Marist College with about 1,200 respondents, so twice the size of the other one, has Trump leading by 3, and then a similar one, again, a sister study showing that is also Trump +3. So that being said, it looks pretty clear that Trump is leading, especially when you look at these two different polls. You'll notice right off the top that you have one that has 43-46 as the margins and the other one being 48-51. So what that is that you have one where it's a 1v1 binary decision, Trump's winning that by 3, and then another one where there's multiple candidates included like RFK, and Trump is still leading by 3 on the net. So much for RFK costing Trump the election there. So North Carolina is going red as well. All right, so when we're looking at the state of Maine for the general election writ large, you have a measly poll of less than 800 people sponsored by Pan Atlantic Research. It has Donald Trump with a lead of 6% with a total of 38% of respondents wanting to vote for him over Biden's 32. Again, this was almost 2 months ago. And what makes it all the more bad, realistically speaking, folks, is that, again, that's only leading up to about 70% of total respondents picking either of the two candidates, which doesn't really make sense. So there's a ton of undecided vote. But I guess as a technicality, as of 2 months ago, we have a red Maine. Okay, so that's a little hard to believe. It went blue in 2016, 2020, but crazier things have happened. Florida, as we should all know, isn't really a close state. And as you can see here, the most recent poll as of 2 weeks ago, which I'm surprised they even spend money on this anymore. But in Florida, we have Trump with a lead of 7%. That's with a ton of undecideds as well. If you add up the margins for the two candidates, that's going to be 46 plus 39, which I believe is like 86%. So there's 14% undecided. So even with all these sort of different choices, Trump is still leading by 7%. You look at the poll 4 days before that, a fortnight before, you can really reference a poll with over 1,900 respondents, and still Trump has a lead at 6%. So it seems very indicative that it's looking really good for Donald Trump in the state of Florida. So let's clock that in for the presidential incumbent, kind of. All right, when we look in New Hampshire, also it's pretty down bad in response to, basically people are saying that it's not so much of a battleground state as if like if Biden were going to lose all these other swing states, that New Hampshire still remaining blue. At least that's the implication, because there's not a lot of polling. As you can see here, we have a really, really bad drought here. But let's look at these most recent polls. Again, looking 3 months ago, there's only primary polls. There's no general election polls. And yeah, so we go all the way down to last year and still nothing, okay? Just follow me. Nothing still yet. Okay, now let's look at the most recent thing I could possibly find. January 17th, Marist College, 1,100 respondents. Trump versus Biden. Biden up by 3. Now, the exact same company has Biden up by 7 in another poll. How does that make sense is my question. Anyway, when we add Kennedy into these equations, it actually eats into Biden's margin. So think about that. 2 months ago, when Biden was at a better position as president, as the incumbent, when you add in Kennedy's 12%, which he still remains around that vicinity in popular support, you can see that he eats into the Biden margin. So all of a sudden, a Biden plus 7 turns to a Biden plus 3. So that's a remarkable thing to point out. So what it seems to me is the case that basically in these liberal states where people are going to vote Biden because they are liberal, these millennial white people, they will still go out and vote Kennedy as a protest, thinking that Biden's going to win anyway, which, in an off chance might actually result in Trump W as a fluke. But that's an interesting phenomenon to take into effect. So that being said, you can also factor in the Nicole Shanahan pick as the VP for RFK. Also kind of strengthens the case that a lot of Democrats will vote for that ticket if they're disaffected enough. Moving on to the state of Minnesota. We have polls as recently as early this month, March 3rd, 2024. Really small polls, though. Like I'm talking maybe what kind of parking lot is 125 people? I mean, that's like a drive-in movie theater. But I mean, if you look at this, again, with a lot of undecided vote, Trump is losing to Biden by about 8% in these two polls as of a month ago in the state of Minnesota. Now, if we look at the poll right before that, again, way bigger one, Biden's still up by 4. So, I mean, that's pretty obvious that it's looking blue despite everything else falling apart for the Democratic Party. They still have that Rust Belt state locked in. All right, so Georgia is also pretty up to date. That this was 2 weeks ago. We have Redfield and Wilton Strategies with 760 respondents in this poll being asked whether you support Donald Trump or Joe Biden for 2024. As you can see here in a binary, we have Trump up by 3. But even this one actually has 4 candidates. And Kennedy, who had 12% support in the last poll in New Hampshire, in Georgia, a southern state, he only has 6% of the vote here in the survey, which is interesting. And Trump is still leading. Now, if we look at this other one, which is double the size almost, this Marist College poll from a couple days before then, Kennedy's up to 14%. So you can see the Kennedy vote is wildly different. Again, 3 days apart. Kennedy's at 14% here, and he's at 6% here. If you can see here, when Kennedy takes a bigger share of the vote versus this top poll, you can see that Trump does 2% better. So the bigger the Kennedy vote, the better for Donald Trump, because obviously that tends to be more disaffected Democrats being taken into account there. So that's a big W for Donald Trump. So thank you very much, RFK. When we look at the great state of Nevada, which is basically a desert with Las Vegas at the bottom, we have March 15th as the most recent set of polls. This crop is a good yield for the Trump campaign. So if you're a farmer, you're really blessed, because in this case, you've got a huge, huge, huge harvest with Trump up in the last 4 polls. In most recency, we have the Emerson College poll with Trump up by 5%. Again, Trump up by 3, and the other one by the same company. But there's more. If you look at this, in a 1v1 vote with Emerson College, with 1,000 people being asked all around the state of Nevada, you see that Trump is up by 2 over Biden. But when you give Kennedy 9% of the vote, and you give West 2% of the vote, Cornel West, who's a liberal, black Bernie Sanders, basically. And then Jill Stein, who's a Green Party, climate nut job with 1%. All of a sudden, Trump is up by 5, okay? So think about that. Trump's vote goes down from 51 to 41, but Biden's goes down from 43 to 36. So Trump goes down by 10, Biden goes down by 13. So you can see how there's a 30% correlation with people voting for Kennedy being originally Biden voters. So you can see these third, fourth, and fifth parties, these tertiary externalities being negative ones for the Biden campaign and a positive externality for the Trump campaign. So as any econ major would point out, that's a very nice thing. So when you see that, you can have a Trump +5 margin in a state where these people qualify on the ballot. All of a sudden, they help out Trump up to a 5-point margin. By the way, Trump has secured the election as of right now. There might be some faithless electors. There might be Nebraska 2nd District that might go blue. So there's some things that might go all right. So maybe we need some more polls. We're going to the super, super important state of Wisconsin, where we have the most recent poll as of 2 weeks ago. And it has Emerson College with 1,000 people asked, who you support for president. You see that Trump is up 43 to 40 to Biden's, obviously. Whereas in the poll, again, with only 2 candidates, you have Trump up by 4, 52 to 48. Okay, now, mind you this is the election with 5 candidates. Okay, Trump is up by about the same margin in Wisconsin, regardless of whether or not it's just him versus Biden or it's him, RFK, etc. So what that means is that, like in Georgia, RFK helps Trump out a lot. In New Hampshire, he helps Trump out even more. And in a state like Nevada, he also helps out Trump. Whereas in Wisconsin, RFK as an externality isn't helping him at all. So, but Trump is still winning by 4 in this poll. So let's clock that in for Donald Trump here, Wisconsin, that is. Okay, you look at Michigan. Michigan, again, up-to-date polling last 2 weeks. We have Emerson College with Trump up by 3 with all these other candidates. And when it's a 1v1, it's a 50-50 dead split with a slight Trump edge here. So think about that. So again, Kennedy takes 5% of the vote. That takes away 2% of Biden's support, which is all you need to make Trump win the state by 3. Whereas if it were a 1v1, it's a very slight Trump lead. It's a 50-50 dead tie. So keep that in mind. So Kennedy does also help Donald Trump in Michigan. Okay, last state, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has polls as of March 18th with pretty large polls sponsored by CNN, so you know they're the most trustworthy. I'm kidding, but anyway, you look at the poll where it's 1v1, again, a binary, folks. When we look at this, it's Trump and Biden, 46 to 46%. It's dead even. When we take into account Kennedy getting 16% of the vote and Cornel West getting 4% of the vote and Jill Stein not in the survey, you look at Trump winning by 2. So when we take into account the most recent polling and other candidates being on the ballot, namely RFK with 16% of the popular vote, all of a sudden, Trump wins Pennsylvania. So basically what we're looking at here is that Michigan is in a dead heat without third-party candidates. With the implementation of RFK Shanahan, that ticket, all of a sudden, Michigan becomes a red state. When we look at the state of Pennsylvania, again, it's tied. But because of RFK, all of a sudden, we have a red Pennsylvania. And you can extrapolate that to mean a lot of other things. If New Hampshire goes red, you can largely think the third-party candidates as well. So that being considered, Donald Trump wins the 2024 election according to the most recent poll across the 50 states of the United States. He wins it by 315 electoral votes to Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris is 223. That is a margin of about 92, I believe, unless I'm on math, but I think I'm right. And RFK basically gets the, maybe the assist of the year award. I don't know, like the, not MVP, but, like the best side character, like that's an Oscar nomination or something. The Grammy goes to the best side actor, and it's this guy, RFK. Anyway, see y'all in the next video. Adios.